They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. For me, only one word comes to mind: fear. Because when I see a photograph, any photograph of a person, they look back. They shouldn't. That's not how pictures work. I know that. But logic doesn't stop their eyes from finding mine. Doesn't stop their heads from turning, sometimes cracking unnaturally, to face me. Doesn't stop them from smiling. It's never a friendly smile. It's wide, too wide. It stretches the edges of their faces in ways human skin shouldn't allow. It's the smile of someone who knows they have you, like a predator watching prey already tangled in the web. This curse has followed me since I was 5 years old. That's when I first saw it happen. We were in a small village in Southeast Asia, the place my father had grown up. The kind of village that didn't have paved roads, only paths trodden through the earth, where people still whispered about spirits like they were neighbors, where elders still burned incense and tossed rice for the dead, where my family for generations had been known as shamans, until my aunt, she broke tradition, practiced the darker arts, spoke to things she wasn't supposed to. After my grandparents died, she didn't mourn them with the rest of the family. She locked herself in their home and painted symbols in blood. She kept animal skulls in jars. She dug things up that were meant to stay buried. The villagers say she changed after that, started talking to people who weren't there, stopped aging properly. Her eyes stayed black, sunken, and full of a deep, endless hate. My father, her brother, wanted nothing to do with it. He left the village, moved to America, married my mom, an art student with a smile that felt like sunlight. They had me. He never looked back. But she never forgot. We got the news one morning, years later. A letter from my father's cousin. No envelope, just folded paper with words written in tight, angry script. She's dead. Your sister passed last night. Her final words were a curse. No condolences, no invitation, just a warning. My mother said we didn't have to go. My father insisted we did. We packed our things. We flew halfway across the world. I remember the heat when we arrived, the damp air, the way people looked at my father like a ghost walking through the village. They'd prepared her body already. The funeral was set for the following day. The room was dim, lit only by flickering candles and thick incense smoke. I remember holding my mom's hand, sticky with sweat. I remember the silence, too heavy for a room full of people. And I remember looking up at the large photograph that hung over the casket. Her portrait. It must have been taken when she was younger, though even then her eyes looked wrong. Dead but watching. Her mouth was a straight line. I stared, and then she smiled. The movement was slow, deliberate. The corners of her mouth stretched upward, then outward, until they nearly touched her ears. Her cheeks didn't move. Her eyes didn't change. Just that smile, that horrible, knowing grin. I froze. My stomach turned to ice. My feet wouldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was like the air had been pulled out of the room just for me. Then she blinked. I screamed so loud the incense tipped over. That was 20 years ago. After the funeral, nothing was ever the same. My dad died 3 months later, dropped dead in our living room. No signs, no warnings, just collapsed while adjusting the thermostat. The doctor said heart failure. My mom said bullshit, said it was her, the aunt, the curse. And I believe her, because ever since that day at the funeral, every photograph of a person has smiled at me. Not just her picture, not just family photos, all of them. I was 5 years old, too young to understand death, too young to understand what a curse really was, but old enough to remember that smile, that first smile, the one that twisted across my aunt's face like her skin was splitting at the seams. It etched itself into my memory like fire brands flesh. Back in the States, I couldn't explain it to anyone. Not the teachers, not the doctors. My mom tried. She told them I was just grieving, maybe traumatized by the sudden loss of family. But she didn't see the way I flinched when someone pulled out a phone to show me pictures. She didn't hear the quiet whispers from the photo albums at night. She didn't feel the air thicken around a framed family portrait until it was like I was drowning in a vacuum. At school, I failed every class that required visual learning. I couldn't open textbooks without risk. Social studies, English, history, they were filled with faces. The moment I saw one, it would turn, smile. Sometimes I'd see the photo's subject blink mid-sentence. Once a poster of George Washington grinned wide enough to split his powdered wig. I remember throwing up in class. They thought I had a stomach flu. I knew better. The guidance counselor called my mom 3 times in a single semester. "He's not engaging," she said. "He won't look at the board. He won't open books. He avoids eye contact like he's terrified of people." I was. Because faces were dangerous. I dropped out before I ever made it to middle school. My mom started homeschooling me. It was easier. She found old textbooks without pictures, blacked out any images before letting me read them. We used notebooks instead of screens, handwritten stories instead of magazines. She sacrificed so much. Took jobs cleaning houses, working kitchens, folding linens in motel basements. Every time she came home with a photo ID, I watched her toss it in the drawer without a second glance. I spent most of my childhood inside, not because I wanted to, but because the world outside was covered in grinning monsters. I couldn't go to the store, not without seeing magazine racks where celebrities' heads tilted unnaturally to smile at me. Couldn't stand in line at the DMV without every printed flyer on the walls twitching with breathless malice. Even photo ID badges, laminated and clipped to people's chests, would warp and bend. Some of them whispered my name. TV screens, billboards, Walmart picture frames with those fake happy families. The smiles always changed, always turned toward me. Sometimes it was subtle, a twitch in the corner of the mouth, an eyebrow raising. Other times it was grotesque, spines contorted, faces twisted backward, necks stretching too far just to make sure they were smiling directly at me. Frozen moments that somehow weren't frozen anymore. I tried to tell my mom. She believed me. Of course she did. She was there at the funeral. She saw my reaction. But what could she do? Psychiatrists didn't help. The first one thought it was early onset schizophrenia. He said I needed antipsychotics, risperidone, aripiprazole. I took them for 2 weeks. They made the smiles worse, slower, more deliberate. It was like the curse had to work harder to reach me, but it still did. The second psychiatrist suggested electroconvulsive therapy. My mom slapped him across the face and pulled me out of the room. We tried spiritual healers, psychics, other shamans. Some wouldn't even touch my case. One old man in Arizona took one look at my aura and said, "She's still watching you." Eventually, we stopped looking for help. I learned to live like a ghost. The house became my whole world. My window to reality was the people who passed by on the sidewalk, the muffled voices of neighbors, and my mom's stories. But even the house wasn't always safe. Once, I found a photo stuck to the bottom of an old cereal box, some factory worker's ID. I didn't see it until it was too late. The man in the photo smiled so hard his cheeks split. Blood, not ink, dripped from the edges of the image. I burned the box in the sink and didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Smiling, always smiling. By the time I was 16, I had developed rules. Never touch a photo, never open the door unless you know who's on the other side. Always check the floor of packages for hidden images. If you hear whispering from the walls, cover every reflective surface. If a picture smiles, don't scream. screaming feeds it. I wrote these rules in my journal, dozens of copies, handwritten in pencil and buried in every drawer, under every mattress, between every page of every book. I became a prisoner of my own mind. And worst of all, the loneliness. I couldn't have friends. How could I explain to them that their class photo in their wallet terrified me more than any weapon? That every time they pulled out their phone, I saw something behind their eyes? I couldn't trust anyone, because even the kindest faces became masks, because even memories, once captured, turned into monsters. And all of it led back to that day in the funeral home. All of it traced back to her, to the aunt who smiled first. When I turned 23, my mom got a call from my dad's old village. It was a man named Mr. Kwan. He remembered my family, said word had spread about my curse, that there was a shaman, an old one, who lived far up the mountainside now. Isolated, no phone, no photos in his house, but he was powerful. He might be able to help. I remember my mom crying that night. For the first time in years, we had hope. She started saving money, applied for 2 passports, bought a map, marked out the route to get there. Then just 6 months ago, she died, collapsed in the kitchen while frying eggs. Her body twisted, arms bent behind her back, her face frozen in a smile. The doctor said they didn't know the cause. I did. Now I'm 25. I've been alone for 6 months. I don't leave the house unless it's night. I've taped newspapers over every reflective surface. I don't own a phone. The neighbors think I'm insane. Maybe I am, but I'm still here. I took the money my mom saved, bought a one-way plane ticket. I'm going back to my father's village, to the place where this all began, to find the shaman, even if it kills me, because I can't live like this anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see them, every face I've ever seen, staring, smiling, waiting. The flight was hell, not because of turbulence or crying babies. Those would have been blessings. No, the hell started the moment I stepped into the airport. Everywhere I turned, faces. Faces in frames, on posters, in advertisements, on luggage tags. Screens flickering departures and arrivals were haunted with headshots and smiling models pushing credit cards and hotel chains. I walked past a Starbucks and saw a wall of employee photos. Each of them turned to look at me as I passed. One of them winked. I'd prepared for this, wore an oversized hoodie, pulled the drawstrings tight until my peripheral vision vanished. I taped gauze inside the hood to limit the angles from which I could see. I brought dark sunglasses, even though they did little to block the feeling of being watched. Still, my stomach twisted with every step. I kept my head down. I need to get to Chiang Mai, Thailand. From there, I'd take a smaller bus to the edge of the mountains, then hike the last part on foot. As the plane taxied, I sat wedged in the back row, facing the bulkhead, praying the smiling woman on the airline magazine didn't move. She did. By hour 2, she had her head tilted at a perfect 90-degree angle, her chin pressed unnaturally to her shoulder, her eyes wide and bloodshot. She never blinked. The closer I got to the village, the quieter the world became. Chiang Mai was chaos, but the further into the countryside I traveled, the more the noise fell away, like the land itself was holding its breath. I slept in cheap hostels, ate dried ramen and old bread, and ignored the faded portraits in every lobby. After 3 days of traveling, I found the road. It was barely more than a dirt trail, swallowed by thick jungle. No signs, no cell towers, just a hand-painted arrow on a tree trunk pointing toward nothing. I walked. It took me 6 hours. My feet bled, my legs burned. But when I crested the hill, I saw it, the village where my father was born, where the curse began. The huts were simple, thatched roofs and bamboo walls. Children ran barefoot between trees. Dogs slept in the sun, and the second they saw me, they stopped. Not just the kids, everyone. A dozen faces turned to stare at me. Not in a welcoming way, not in fear either. It was recognition, like they'd seen me in a nightmare before. Mr. Kwan found me first. He was older now, nearly blind in one eye, but he still had that sharp edge in his voice. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said, guiding me toward a hut at the village's edge. "Thought maybe the curse already got you." "It's trying," I muttered. He nodded, like he understood more than I'd said. The shaman, Elder Panich, lived in isolation up the next ridge. No one else dared go near him. Said the energy around him was too powerful. Said spirits gathered at his doorstep like moths around flame, but he was my only shot. We walked the trail in silence, the jungle pressing close on both sides. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, whispers maybe, or leaves. I couldn't tell. When we reached the hut, it was smaller than I expected. No windows, just a door covered in old bones and tied rope. Mr. Kwan knocked once, then turned away. "He'll decide if he wants to see you." Then he left me there, alone. The door creaked open after sundown. The man who emerged was ancient, bent, gray-skinned, with cloudy eyes that looked through me instead of at me. "You carry death," he said. I didn't answer. He opened the door wider and gestured inside. The hut was dark but warm. The air smelled like herbs and smoke. There were no photographs, not a single one. He handed me tea that tasted like tree bark and stared at me without blinking. "You've seen her, haven't you?" "My aunt," I whispered. "No," he said slowly. "Her spirit, the curse she placed, it follows you still. I want it gone." "You are not the first to ask for such a thing," he said. "But this curse was not born from anger, it was born from devotion. Your aunt bound herself to you. Death only made it easier." He stood and walked toward a pile of thick scrolls. "There may be a way," he muttered, "but it will not be clean, and it will not be kind. I don't care. I just want it to stop." He nodded, as if he expected no less. "We begin tomorrow night. You must not sleep until then. You must not speak to any spirits who approach. Do you understand?" I did. I wish I didn't. That night was the longest of my life. The jungle never slept. Crickets chirped, branches snapped, owls cried out like dying men. But worse than that was the feeling, the weight pressing in on the hut. Like something circling. I felt her long before I saw her. My aunt. She didn't knock, didn't whisper. She simply appeared at the far edge of the clearing. Pale, silent, smiling. I covered my eyes. But it didn't matter, because when I looked at the bamboo wall in front of me, I saw it begin to warp. The wood bent, and from it emerged her face. Like a photograph burned into the grain, her eyes opened, her lips curled back. That same smile, that endless, hateful smile. I tore my gaze away and clamped my hands over my ears. She whispered anyway. "You left me. You belong to me. You will die before he saves you." I screamed and ran outside, gasping in the cold air. She was gone. The jungle was still. The night had eyes. When morning came, the shaman didn't answer his door. I waited, knocked again, nothing. Finally, I pushed it open. He was lying on the floor, face twisted, arms broken, eyes wide open, and smiling. No blood, no wounds, just death. And on the wall behind him, carved deep into the wood, were the words, "No one can save you." I dropped to my knees. Whatever hope I had left shattered like glass. I stayed in that hut for 2 more days. No food, no water, just fear. Then I made a decision. If the curse wouldn't leave me, maybe I could end what created it. The graveyard lay deep in the forest, beyond the farthest rice fields, where even the birds stopped singing. It wasn't marked on any map. The villagers didn't talk about it, especially not about the graves in the back, where the cursed ones were buried. It took me all afternoon to find her stone. It was the smallest one there, unnamed, weather-worn, half swallowed by the roots of a strangler fig. I stood over it, sweat pouring down my face, hands blistered from gripping the machete I used to hack through the jungle. The sky turned red behind the tree line. "I'm here," I said. There was no breeze, no birdsong, only silence. I dropped to my knees and began to dig. The earth fought me. It clung to my hands like it didn't want to give her up. Roots wrapped around my arms like veins, pulling me back, slicing my skin. Rocks split my knuckles. My muscles screamed, but I didn't stop. By the time I reached the wood, the moon had risen. The coffin's lid was rotten in places, but mostly intact. I expected decay. I expected bones. What I found instead made my stomach drop. She was whole, skin like dried parchment, lips cracked but curled in that familiar smile. Her ceremonial robe was preserved. Her fingernails, long, sharp, blackened, tapped against the inside of the coffin lid once as if she'd been waiting for me. Then her eyes opened. I staggered back. She sat up. "Still running?" she rasped. Her voice came from everywhere, from the trees, from the wind, from the coffin itself. Her body jerked like a puppet, joints cracking. She rose to her feet, bones stretching unnaturally tall. "You think this ends with fire?" she snarled. Her smile split wider, revealing blackened teeth, more than a human mouth should hold. I tried to back away, but the roots snared my legs. The ground pulsed beneath me, wet and alive. "You are mine," she said. "You always were. Your father broke the bloodline. You are all that remains." I lit a match. She shrieked, not in pain but in fury. Her arms shot forward and suddenly I couldn't move. Invisible pressure slammed me to the ground. My spine bent backward. Her shadow fell over me like the wings of a great insect. She leaned in close, her face inches from mine. I lived in silence, in shame. Forgotten by your father, our people. I fed on spirits because I had no one else. And now, you think you can erase me? I felt something slither across my skin. Centipedes, dozens of them, pouring from her sleeves, crawling into my mouth, my nose. I choked, screamed. Somehow I forced my hand into my jacket pocket. I found the lighter, clicked it, again and again. It sparked, no flame. She laughed. "You never had a choice." Click, spark, click, flame. I plunged the flame into the canister I'd spilled beside her coffin. The gasoline erupted. She screamed. This time it was pain. The roots let go. The centipedes scattered. Her shriek tore through the jungle, shaking birds from trees, rattling the bones of the earth. Her body burst into flame, twisting violently. "No!" she howled, clawing at the air. "You belong to me." I backed away, heart thundering, my body barely responding. The fire climbed her limbs like serpents. Her smile finally dropped, and in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen since I was 5 years old. Fear. She lunged toward me one last time. I kicked her burning body back into the grave. She landed hard. The coffin splintered. The flames roared. "You will never be free." The fire swallowed her. The words ended in a wet hiss. I stood over the blaze, panting, shaking, waiting for her to rise again. She didn't. Ash rose into the wind. The trees grew still. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt the air on my skin without weight. She was gone. Not the curse, but her. The grave smoldered for 3 days. When I returned, there was nothing left. Not even bones, just scorched dirt. I didn't bury it. I wanted the earth to remember what it held. Let it scar, let it warn. Let it whisper to the next thing that thought it could own me. I stayed in the hut for a week after the fire. The villagers didn't come near me. Even Mr. Kwan, who had brought me here, only left bowls of rice at the edge of the forest, never daring to speak a word. They knew. Somehow they always knew when the curse had shifted. I didn't feel victory, not even relief, only silence. But silence, I realized, is a kind of mercy. On the seventh day, I walked to the river and washed the dirt from my skin. I watched the soot swirl through the current like smoke rising underwater. I sat beneath the banyan tree and let the sun warm my back. My aunt's voice didn't whisper. The wind didn't shudder with breath that wasn't mine. Still, I didn't believe it was over. Not really. I saw the signs creeping back. It started subtle. In my reflection, sometimes my smile lasted a moment too long. A rusted piece of a rearview mirror showed a flash of teeth that didn't feel like mine. Later, I found a discarded tourist photo, a snapshot left behind by someone passing through the village. When I glanced at it, just for a second, the woman in the background turned her head to look at me. The curse wasn't gone, but something had changed. I had faced her, fought back, burned the body that tied her to this world. The tether was frayed now, the grip looser. The smiles still came, but less often, less powerful. Maybe one day they would stop altogether. But until then, I had a choice, and I chose to live. I moved into a hut at the edge of the village. It used to belong to an old woodworker who passed a year ago. I built new walls, swept the floors, carved charms into the doorframe. The villagers didn't speak to me at first. But curiosity is stronger than fear. One day, a boy brought me a carved wooden mask. Another time, a woman left rice cakes outside my door. Eventually, they began to smile, not the way photos did, but the way people should. I taught the children how to boil dyes from bark. I helped repair roofs after the rainy season. I stopped looking for photos. The world was simpler this way, quieter. One morning, I followed a strange bird through the forest. It had feathers the color of charcoal and a cry like whistling wind. I didn't know why, but I felt drawn to it. It led me to a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, the walls were covered in charcoal sketches, human faces, hundreds of them, all looking forward. None of them smiled. I stood at the center of the cavern, heart pounding. Then I heard her. Not my aunt, not a ghost, but something older, something that lived in those cracks between life and image, something my aunt had bargained with all those years ago. "You burned her," it said. "I did, but not me. I didn't come to finish you," I said. "I came to understand." The voices didn't speak again, but I saw a shape in the shadows, tall and thin, with stretched lips and too many teeth. I bowed my head and left. That night, I dreamed. In the dream, my mother sat on a hill of paper photographs. They fluttered in the wind, eyes and mouths and faces folding like petals. She smiled, not twisted, not cursed, just smiled. "I'm proud of you," she said. When I woke up, I wept. Years passed. The curse never fully left me, but it faded, became something like tinnitus, always present, never deafening. I kept to my quiet hut, helped where I could, avoided what I must, and one day I realized I hadn't seen a photo smile in months. I still kept the windows shuttered, still lit incense when the wind changed direction, but I walked with peace. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. For me, they used to say fear. Now, maybe resilience, maybe hope, or maybe just this: I'm still here, and I'm not smiling.